Hello, everyone. It's Paul Steely White. I'm lucky that I get to be the executive director of Parks and Trails New York. Still can't believe that's the case. As those of you who know PTNY, it's a truly remarkable organization. We're celebrating, well, it's our 40th anniversary this year, right? So we're approaching middle age, or maybe that is middle age. But we have a lot to look back on, working with our favorite partners like OSI. I know we have a bunch of folks from Open Space Institute on the call. We've done a lot for our public lands over the years, and we're really looking to take that good work to the next level now in 2025. You don't need to hear from me. If you know anything about PTNY and our work to defend, expand, improve our public lands, you know that it's all about our brilliant staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Will Cote, Erica Schneider, and Shayna Hogan here in just a second. But before I do, I want to first just thank you for coming. You know, we can't do the job we do without you. Your support, your engagement, your advocacy, your actions. I know everyone on this call holds our parks, greenway trails, historic sites very near and dear. And we always have to celebrate that, right? And it's so great that we have this vibrant community of people and supporters. And we have a few take actions for you too, right? So please stay tuned. We're gonna plug you into some very current events and advocacy we wanna make happen. And then the last thing I want to say before I turn it over to Will is, I think it's true that we're in this, very special cultural, political moment, and it's a time to remind ourselves of our values. Number one, public lands are a public good, right? Right up there with clean water, high quality public education, roads, right? We always have to be reminding ourselves and each other that what we're fighting for is not frivolous. This is not just nice to have. Parks, greenway trails, public lands, these are vital to our health, to our economy, and we have to keep reminding folks of that. Number two, the health of our public lands are inextricably linked to the health of the institutions that steward them, right? From grassroots friends groups right up to OPRHP and DEC, our institutions are vital to keeping these going. And we have to remind everyone how important it is to keep these institutions funded, supported, and in our hearts, right? So that's number two. And third and final, I think we all agree that our public lands have to be accessible and welcoming to everyone. That sounds trite to some who've been working on this for a long time, but now is a perfect time for us to recommit to this goal of making sure that accessibility in all of the ways is front and center with our public lands. And that's a perfect segue to Will Cote, who's going to talk about a great program that may not be the largest program we're fighting for this year, but I think in a lot of ways, it's one of the best. And I think a leading indicator, hopefully, of things to come. Will.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Yes, I'm excited to be with you all this afternoon and talk about our priorities. And right at the top of that for this year, particularly with our advocacy efforts, is the Connect Kids to Nature, the Connect Kids to Parks program, which is one of the programs within the Environmental Protection Fund. And internally here at PTNY, we sort of make this joke that this is an underappreciated, unsung hero of the work that is going on to create the next generation of stewards. So the Connect Kids to Parks program was created in 2016 and has enabled nearly 800,000 students to go to our public lands. Those are our parks, our historic sites, and DEC's managed lands to engage with the environment and to learn about all the wonderful benefits that exposure to the public lands provides them. And though this program started before the pandemic, it was really after the COVID pandemic when restrictions on transportation and school engagements in group settings were eliminated, and we have seen a dramatic increase in this program, about 500% growth between 2021 and 2023. And what we found is that our primary core network here, the friends groups, the grassroots organizations that help us day in, day out champion and steward our public lands, have been leveraging this program very successfully to the point where it became wildly oversubscribed and by extension underfunded. And this was a red flag for us, an opportunity for us to step in and see what we could do to expand this critical funding for folks to be able to come out and again, access those green spaces. If we are able to expand funding in this year's proposed budget here in the state and get hopefully to our ideal, which is $4 million in funding, that would enable roughly 250,000 to 300,000 additional students to be able to go and visit those public lands in just the next calendar year. So it's a really exciting opportunity. And as Paul pointed out, this is this unique moment to be able to get more folks out into public lands and really do that good work that's necessary to make sure everyone feels welcome. We've also been able to engage with many of our friends groups that have been doing this work. And on the next couple of slides, you'll see some quotes pulled from them about what this program has done for them and the communities that they serve, right? So it's really helped to create this additional appreciation of nature and understanding of the science. We have some great colleagues at New York State Parks who say that the state park system is our greatest scientific classroom, and they're right. And we know that the students and the teachers and the chaperones that have gone to those programs have really benefited from them. In the next slide, you'll see some additional quotes that talk about, yes, it's science, and yes, it is absolutely important, but there's other things that can be taught in our public lands as well, whether that's cultural and historical or different types of artistic expression and how the environment engages folks in those ways as well. It's really wonderful to see the breadth of what this program has done for those park communities. And also by extension, something that we're also examining a bit further in 25 is that role with education and which programs are meeting school curriculum and enabling teachers to, again, really use this in a meaningful way. So it's an exciting time to be an advocate for the Connect Kids to Parks program and for our public lands. And again, just to continue advancing the needle, as it were, moving the needle forward on accessibility for all and making sure that everyone feels welcome. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my wonderful colleague, Erica.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. So yeah, I mean, of course, our name, Parks and Trails. Trails, greenways are always a big focus of ours. We know that they impact our communities in so many ways, from being free public spaces for active recreation and transportation, serving to help us tackle our climate goals, and helping build really vibrant communities through sustainable tourism and attracting people to these places that are really great places to live and visit, and really pull together what makes a place a special place. So over the years, over the last 20 years, New York State has built out an impressive network of greenway trails, over 2,000 miles. But this network, it's incomplete, right? We have the Empire State Trail, 750 miles, opened in 2020, but it doesn't reach a lot of our state's communities. It doesn't reach 35 of New York's 50 most populous communities. So there are a lot of gaps in this network, whether it's gaps in trails themselves or gaps between a trail and the rest of the community. So we kind of are seeking to address these gaps through a couple different ways, one of which is in the budget. We're pushing for 10 million for dedicated greenway funding that would go towards construction, maintenance, and planning. So the majority would go towards actually making those trail projects happen, and then the rest, the remaining 2 million, would help to address those regional planning efforts and seek to plan out those connections so we can really bring the network all together. And all of this would prioritize, we would intend for this funding to prioritize underserved communities. Beyond money in the budget, we're looking at different ways that legislation can help make our Greenway Trail network better. And so both in the user experience and safety, and in actually creating opportunities to build the network. So if you guys have been following our work, last year we got the Empire State Trail detour requirements bill passed in both houses unanimously, but at the end of the day, it was vetoed by the governor. So we're going back to the state agencies and making sure that everyone is on the same page. And really, we're happy with what we've been able to do to raise the visibility of this issue of the Empire State Trail as one continuous route that serves transportation purposes, serves as a tourism generator. So seeking to really get those conversations at the forefront is what we're able to do with that package. And if you can just go back really quick, Michaela, just want to highlight the highway funding flexibility bill is something we're really excited about that would it would allow municipalities the ability to use this pot of funding called CHIPS that is usually or that's used right now for local highway and road maintenance, would allow municipalities to decide if they want to use it for greenway trail maintenance. We know that maintenance is one of the number one hardest things to get funded once you build a trail. We know that communities are sometimes having to decide not to build a trail because they don't know how they're going to be able to maintain it. So this could be a really big game changer in the world of trails. So finally, as you saw for a second there, we are building a grassroots movement and we want you to be a part of it. We're really excited to be hosting the first New York State Greenway Trails Conference in over 15 years. It's going to be in Kingston this fall. So I really encourage you all to join. We'll send out follow-up information about this. You can sign up using the interest form to make sure you stay up to date. And we also have a call for presentations out there. So we're hoping to create a really dynamic slate of presentations and interactive conversations that will really generate the conversation to move our network forward. So with that, that's just a little bit of everything we're doing in Greenways, but I will pass it back over to talk about public lands and funding.
Thank you, Erica. So Erica mentioned the funding we're asking for our Greenway network. I want to talk a little bit about funding our other public lands that we support and champion here at PTNY. So as many of you might have seen, our state parks and historic sites this year welcomed a record 88 million visitors. This is up 5% from 2023, but most importantly, this marks the 12th consecutive year of record visitation at our state parks and historic sites. Part of which can be attributed to the centennial celebration that parks experienced last year and the many efforts and initiatives hosted by friends, partners, a handful on the call here that centennial events that brought people to our public lands. But it also shows, it's a continuous upward trend that shows that more and more people are recognizing the value in these places, but also, and maybe more importantly, it's a direct reflection of the investment that New York State has made in these spaces. So, and those investments are, ones that PTNY and our partners, our friends, our advocates, year after year come to Park Advocacy Day and other additional advocacy efforts throughout the year to fight for this funding. So this is a direct link. Your efforts and our efforts have helped make more people come to these sites. And for 2025, we're ramping up these efforts to ensure that our most popular parks, greenway trails, and open spaces are equipped to accommodate the record demand for these outdoor experiences. So I mentioned that increased visitation is a direct result of this increased investment. It turns out increased investment in parks also has a significant impact on the New York State economy. So New York's public lands, no surprise, are economic powerhouses, with the state park system alone generating returns on par with the agricultural sector. Our PTNY's economic impact of the parks report last year, which was released, found that every $1 million invested in parks resulted in 10 million in sales, 4 million in labor income, and 7 million in state GDP. So this is pretty significant, right? We know that investing in these spaces pays off. And after nearly 2 billion invested in revitalizing New York's public lands, it's time to realize their full potential. Paul mentioned this earlier, but making these spaces welcoming, inclusive, and accessible for all is our main priority in 2025. And I think you'll see that as a through line throughout all of these points, these 5 for 25 and our asks. So in one way we can do that is by starting with the Department of Environmental Conservation, right? So Adventure New York funding for DEC has remained at 90 million for over a decade. This funding is used to address critical capital needs, including campground rehabilitation, upgrading trail systems, enhancing fishing access, and developing recreational facilities. But DEC has increasingly began to put greater emphasis on accessibility and inclusivity for all New Yorkers, and the time has come to expand the state's annual investment in this pot of money to $100 million. This increase will help meet growing demand and support vital improvements in these shared spaces. So make the lands that we have already invested money in more accessible, more welcoming to different groups. Also going to be critical is maintaining 200 million in New York Works funding for State Parks Capital. This is essential to revitalizing the system and addressing a substantial backlog of critical infrastructure repair. These funds will enable reopening of long closed facilities, allow facilities to meet accessibility standards, and also to meet mandates to transition to renewable energy sources. Keeping this pot of funding at this level is necessary to preserve the functionality of our parks for future generations and to meet that increased demand that I mentioned earlier. So last thing I want to touch on is that not everyone is able to access our state parks, historic sites, and public lands for a variety of reasons, right? And that could be lack of transportation, fees, there's many different reasons, but we also know that people spend a lot of time, most of their time, close to home. So investing in these local parks is critical, and creating more local opportunities for New Yorkers to enjoy the benefit of the outdoors. So the Parks Preservation and Heritage Program, commonly referred to as Municipal Parks Program, supports the process of creating municipal parks and recreational facilities in local communities. So they also dedicate 40% of funding to environmental justice communities, which ensures equitable access to green space for underserved populations. So we want to make sure, there's currently more than 90 million in demand for this program. And right now it's only funded at 26 million. So we are asking that it is expanded in the EPF to 40 million to meet that demand. And if you represent an organization that supports these asks, we encourage you to sign on to our fiscal year 2026 budget letter, which we'll include in the chat soon. But with that, I will turn it back over to Will to talk about some of those benefits of these.
Thanks, Jana. So I think we're really hopefully identifying for all of you, the work that we've been doing, the successes that we've had, sort of the trajectory that we're on. And I want to build off of what Shana said, right? So this idea that if we fund it, if we build it, if we can secure those investments, will they come? And I think we've seen that, in fact, they will. We know record visitation is there. It's on trend to continue into the future. Now, the question really becomes, what do we do to ensure all New Yorkers and all visitors feel like the parks system, our greenways system, is for them? And so we're starting to lean into some new areas, really looking at sort of the mechanisms of this work, right? So we know parks and public lands are vital for the livability in New York State. They improve well-being. As Paul and I joke, there's a new report every week that comes out that highlights the connection between mental and physical health and access to the outdoors. We know that we need to reduce the disparities that exist. Our colleagues at OSI released this wonderful report a couple of years ago called Open Spaces for All, and it really put a fine point on the fact that, in particular, Black New Yorkers represent 18% of the population, but they only represent 11% of the state park visitorship. And then among Hispanics, it's even sort of a greater gap, right? They represent 20% of the population, but only 8% of the folks that are visiting. And that is something that we need to address more meaningfully. And to do that, one function is to create stronger coalitions, develop more coalitions that are targeted, but specifically trying to welcome more folks who are using parks or have a stake in parks in our public lands to be part of our process for charting the future and strategies that will hopefully lend themselves to success. So we'll talk a little bit about that more. I want to talk specifically about the Greenways work that we're doing and our Safe Streets Coalition, the work that Erica and Dylan and the team are doing there. So parks and trails, as you all know, don't exist in a vacuum. They're part of community networks and community systems. And we feel like all New Yorkers and visitors should be able to navigate those public lands successfully and specifically safely. So to this end, we're part of the Safe Streets Coalition for New Yorkers for Transportation Equity. That coalition is really focused on requiring complete streets principles to be incorporated in maintenance projects, defining safe passing distance for motor vehicles when they're passing cyclists to ensure we have less negative connections, as it were, for lack of a better phrase, allowing cyclists to move more safely in streets, by treating stop signs as yield signs and those types of things, preventing unnecessary highway widenings. I think we can all agree we have plenty of highways, and we should be maybe redirecting our efforts to more local and municipal and county level roads that would be a bit safer for folks. So that's one aspect of the work that we're doing. But we're also really leaning into the volunteerism and stewardship components, right? So as Shana mentioned, Park Advocacy Day is around the corner. We've made a targeted effort, a really focused effort to bring more of the park users to our coalitions, right? So yes, we want friends groups. Yes, we want folks that are have a stake in the success of our park system, but that includes anglers, birders, youth groups, orienteering folks, Boy and Girl Scout troops, you name it. Most folks are engaging with the outdoors, and they might just be passively enjoying it, visiting the playground, hosting a birthday party at a pavilion, and those folks have a stake in this conversation too. So one way we're really going to start expanding that effort is through our volunteerism and stewardship events. It's the 20th year, I believe, of Canal Clean Sweep. We're hoping to have 200 events this year across the Erie Canalway system to sort of get in lockstep and some synergy with the 200th anniversary of the Canalway. And so we'll be looking for all of you and our various coalitions and networks and users to be plugged into that, as well as I Love My Park Day. Last year, we held about 150 events or so across the state. We had over 5,000 people participating. And as you may have heard of said, this is the largest single day volunteer event in New York State. It's an opportunity for us to continue to offer an opportunity to be engaged with us, to be engaged with our friends groups, to be engaged in the park community, and to steward that in a meaningful way going forward. Not listed here are two other opportunities that we're excited to continue building on this year after our inaugural year last year, which is Adirondack and Catskill Day, which will be in September of this year, and Wildlife Day, which will be in probably early October. Still working with our agency partners on those dates. But again, Wildlife Day, an opportunity for people who are passionate about supporting our public lands, the ecosystems, the animals, the flora, the fauna that live there to, have a stake in it, feel like they're actively engaged, and become a partner of ours as we move the needle forward. Hopefully they'll feel more welcome if they have some ownership, as they already do. And so with that, I want to pass it back to Shana and talk a little bit about our grassroots work.
Thank you, Will. Last but not least, and my personal favorite, I always joke that my job is to support the people who are doing the actual hard work on the ground. And I'm going to talk about a few ways in which we do that here. I know there's some friends on the call, so little shout out to you all. So I want to talk about PTNY's flagship program, which is the Park and Trail Partnership Grants. This matching grant program funded by the Environmental Protection Fund allows groups affiliated with New York State parks and historic sites, as well as DEC, to secure funds for the public lands that they champion. So it's currently in its 10th round. And it funds a diverse array of efforts by partners to make our public lands more welcoming, accessible, and enjoyable. We've talked about that throughout the webinar. This is one way we are able to lift that effort, is by supporting these groups in specific projects and providing funds to be able to do so. So since its launch in 2015, we've awarded $9.9 million to 245 projects across the state, leveraging $5 million in private investment. This is a significant impact, even if the numbers look small. I'll share some examples of projects we've funded in the last round in a minute. But our main thing is that this program is still oversubscribed. It has a huge impact, and we're still not able to fund all the projects that we need to fund to have the impact that we're hoping to have on our state parks and public lands. So in the last few rounds alone, there have been $5 million in requests that we've had to deny. That is why we're asking to expand this program to $4 million in 2026, being able to fund significant programs like the ones we funded in round 9, such as an adaptive kayak launch at Point Roche State Park, allowing more people to access and launch themselves into kayaks. We funded ADA enhancements at Little Stony Point Volunteer Center, which allows more individuals just to access programming hosted by the group. We funded a video production series written and produced by Haudenosaunee presenters about Iroquois life and culture, which will be featured at Letchworth State Park and used in the programming by the Friends of Letchworth. And this is just a small taste of projects that we were able to advance in one round. There are significantly more ways that Friends groups are working around the clock to make our public lands more accessible and enjoyable for communities, local communities across New York State. And this small but mighty grant program needs to be expanded in order to do so. Another program that I want to highlight is our Trail Town program. So it's dedicated funding through the Canal Corporation and the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation. PTNY is able to provide planning, promotional, and financial support to communities along the Empire State Trail and the Genesee Valley Greenway Trail. So with the Empire State Trail Town program, it's in its 4th year. PTNY works with trailside communities, and this is mostly Erica's work, so I'm just highlighting a little bit, but if you have any questions, you can send, I'll make sure we direct them to her after this. But and Rebecca too, I don't know if she's on the call today, but Rebecca and Erica are 2 main Trail Town people on staff. But so PTNY works with trailside communities to increase opportunities for residents to access high quality recreation opportunities and also create trail friendly destinations where visitors want to stay, explore, and spend their money. So as I mentioned, it's in its 4th year, and the Empire State Trail Town specifically has provided in-depth support for 8 communities and is continuing to expand. So with the Genesee Valley Trail Towns, we provide support to groups along the Genesee Valley Greenway in Western New York. And that includes the support that we provide for Empire State Trail Towns, but also includes seed grants for municipalities. So to date, we've, with the Park and Trail Partnership Grant Program, we've also provided $100,000 in seed grants to 10 towns along the Genesee Valley Greenway. This year, that is expanding to towns along the Empire State Trail in Western New York. And these grants really allowed towns to take advantage of visitation to the greenways and other outdoor recreational resources in the area. They foster placemaking efforts, create safer streets for cyclists and pedestrians in these communities, and implement projects that are identified in their community action plans that Erica works with them to create. These seed grants also make up for gaps in trail-oriented funding needs, like Erica mentioned earlier in the webinar. This helps to fund some of that. And then there's one quote slide I have in here that just highlights the impact of this program. But the town of Canandaigua, they hosted a Seneca Nation Field Day event. They received 2 awards from us in 2022 and 2023. But they mentioned that prior to joining the Trail Town Initiative, their community efforts around trail-oriented development, they weren't really seeing much return on investment. But since their time as a Trail Town, they've made significant progress in many different aspects, and that these grants have really helped further these initiatives. So investing in these local efforts it is huge. There's other grants out there, but they're not as accessible. They're harder to apply for. And we take some of these larger pots of money. One thing PTNY is really good at is taking these larger pots of money and support from the state and from other areas and making it more accessible to the small groups and municipalities that need them to be able to do this very valuable and important work. So just want to end there. I think with that, maybe turn it back over to Paul to kick off the Q&A.
Thanks, Shayna. Will, Erica, as you can see, we're blessed here at PTNY. And we have a staff of about 13 now, right? So there's some folks that you're not seeing. I know many of you on the call work with our other colleagues. But really, it's just this wider community. We had great turnout for the call today. So I'm so glad that you were able to make the time and hear more about our priorities for the year. I think there's already some indication that these efforts are meeting with some good success. You saw a lot of key themes throughout the presentation, and one that we like to talk about a lot is the big tent that we're growing, right? Our coalitions, our network branching out and, reaching out to new stakeholder groups, because there's so many people who have a stake in our system, but not everyone's at the table, right? So we want to make sure that folks are there. Can we, before we maybe dive right into the Q&A, are we going to mention the events and the take actions a bit later, or should we do that now?
We'll do that now. I can start popping them in so folks can
Yeah,
check
and
them out.
if you have questions, please throw them in the chat. I think we've got a few already coming in via a few different mechanisms. But we have another webinar coming up very shortly, specifically on the Empire State Trail. You'll get to hear more from Erica and also Dylan Carey about our efforts to improve the Greenway network in New York State, specifically the EST. And also, if you're interested in you yourself getting out there, giving it a go, either as a DIY or through one of our great cycling events. I know a couple folks on the call. Alan Mukamal, I think you're here. I know you've ridden the Empire State Trail at least a couple times. And you're like one of our leading evangelists for telling people this is the best kept secret, anywhere. Get out there and do it. And then, of course, Park Advocacy Day, which we are very proud to do again this year with our valued partners at Open Space Institute. I think we're looking to have another record turnout, not just over 100 committed advocates from around the state, but I think it's true, thanks to Shayna and Will's efforts, that we'll have more specific user groups, right? Like all the tribes from public lands, from birders to kayakers to, the usual hikers and bikers, right? But lots of other folks, forest bathers, everyone's going to be coming out for park advocacy. If you're not signed up, I think we still might have a few more slots. So you don't want to miss that. But let's get to the Q&A. Michaela, Shayna, do we have a few questions teed up? The tougher, the better.
Yes, we do have some questions. So any chance that the Trail Towns program will be expanded to non-Canalway locations?
Pitch down the middle for Erica, maybe?
Yeah, at this time, our funders are limited. The Canal Corporation is obviously interested in the Canalway Trail specifically, but we would love to. So, we're pursuing different funding avenues. We're seeing how we can do it because it really we named it Empire State Trail Town so that it could be inclusive of the entire network. So we're looking forward to hopefully in the not too distant future expanding.
Yeah, as Erica said, we have a couple of irons in the fire with a few potential funders to expand trail towns. I mean, there's so many towns and cities that want to be part of the program, that want, the technical assistance to get more economic value from the trail. And that's not just tourism, right? We're getting increasing requests for planning assistance, zoning assistance. There's like increasing land use opportunities that are happening along the trail. We'd love to see more density, more affordable housing, right? More accessibility built into the built environment as land along the trail develops. And, we have three brilliant planners on staff here, and there's many other folks in the planning community statewide who I think are increasingly excited about trail towns and playing a role in, trail-friendly zoning or trail-oriented development, as we like to call it. What's next?
So we mentioned the EPF a few times, funding Connect Kids, Greenways, et cetera. What is that? What is the funding mechanism of the EPF?
Will Cote.
Sure, yeah. So the Environmental Protection Fund is actually funded by the real estate transfer tax. So it's a special pot of money that was set up a bit over 20 years ago by some very forward-thinking environmental advocates who realized there needed to be a dedicated pot for these types of purposes, and has grown steadily over that period of time. Most recently, I think 2 or 3 years ago, it jumped to 400 million. The coalition of over about 100 organizations across the state were just actually walking the halls of the Capitol and the Legislative Office building yesterday. Shout out to a few of you who are on this call. And we were meeting with legislators to ask that be increased to 500 million for all the reasons that we have explained, as well as Paul's framed out. So it's really wonderful in the sense that it's not taxpayer dollars, but it is really crucial kind of component of our state's leadership and environmental stewardship and climate action.
Are there any indications that Connect Kids will be available for the remaining 2025 school year?
Ooh, great question. I'll take that one too. Yes, I know our colleagues at state parks are very focused on getting that program up and running, sort of rectifying all of the books, as it were, from the record number of requests that they had in. So uh, my understanding is it will come back on this quarter. So certainly should be available for funding this year. And I think everyone will be happy when we see the final number in the budget when it is finally approved, to see where we land. And I look forward to spreading that good news.
Awesome. So switching gears, are we also advocating for the governor's new NY Plays initiative? Her call for 67.5 million for the places for learning, activity, and youth socialization?
Absolutely. We'll have something to say about this, but it's a good moment for me just to acknowledge everything Governor Hochul has done for our public lands, right? I mean, not just this new plays initiative, but again, we're seeing more funding for the New York Swims program, which has been tremendous, right? It's not been a central part of what we've advocated for. You've seen sort of what we're about, but we are delighted to be able to mobilize our network in support of those amazing initiatives, and we're going to continue that. The political leadership that we have now is by no means guaranteed, right? So a big part of park advocacy, a big part of the network and the coalition that you are a part of, is preparing for those days ahead when we might have to fight, for these programs, because we might someday lack the political leadership that we have right now in Governor Hochul. But yeah, Will, anything more on plays or swims or these other signature initiatives?
I mean, I think you're hitting it right, Paul. We're focused on public lands. We're starting to take a closer, more dedicated look at municipal parks, and I think this dovetails with that. It's where folks are going day in, day out to access services, to build community, to get outside, as it were. So PTNY does not have an official stance on these. We won't necessarily be going above and beyond to advocate for them. However, we certainly are supportive and would love to see them come to fruition.
Awesome. So circling back to Connect Kids, do you know if they'll be rolling out any new criteria for the program?
Another great question. So Shane and I have been sort of, we keep using the word coalition, so I'm going to use a different phrase. I'm going to say we've been cultivating a small steering committee of friends groups, both of parks and DEC lands, that have really leveraged this program incredibly successfully, who rely on this funding to make their own programming happen and dig deeper into their local communities. And so we have had a couple of higher level meetings with state parks leadership and shown them, in black and white, dollars and cents, qualitative and quantitative ways. Here's what this program does, and here's what it would hopefully take to be able to add some additional components to the programming. So there is no official word in some, but we're confident that they're giving our recommendations an appropriate amount of attention, and whatever they come back with, we'll be happy to support.
Awesome. Any other questions regarding Connect Kids? Please throw them in the Q&A. Looks like we have a few more. So if funding is increased for DEC lands for the accessibility projects, will the DEC be able to apply directly, or would they still rely on a partner or not-for-profit to apply those projects?
I'm assuming we're talking about the Adventure New York money, in which case that goes directly to the agency for them to fulfill their own projects. Paul and I have had some great meetings with them. Big thank you to Kathy Moser from OSI, who was on that call, who's also participated to kind of help us really understand the needs and make for an informed pitch for additional funding. But I think what they have been very forthright about is exactly what it would go to, right? So I think it's the things that Shana mentioned. It's expanding fishing accessibility, birding accessibility. I know they want to put more into water recreation at locations and places that they feel are appropriate, where additional visitorship is not sort of impinging on the critical work that they're doing to protect the environment and species and wildlife. So it'd be those types of efforts. And $10 million can go a long way, but we're also cognizant that it's not a huge amount of money. Construction projects cost quite a bit of money, especially when you do want to do it appropriately with the with the environment where they're being placed. So we're hopeful that they can continue to move the needle forward. I think the agency, in my opinion, this is not necessarily PTNY's opinion, but my opinion, has done a lot of great work to expand accessibility for all folks into the lands that they manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming back to Connect Kids, would it be possible to combine Connect Kids funding with the Greenway Trails program to service schools within a single school district that are within proximity to the Empire State Trail?
I will say I haven't thought of that yet. But I will say that Connect Kids is really top of mind for us. I think there's a number of ways that we could sort of dive more deeply into that program and the ways that it does build this community. So that's a very interesting idea that I will probably try to run with the ball a little bit and talk to Dylan and Erica about the feasibility of it. You know, Paul's talked a bit about Parks RX, right? This concept that parks provide mental and physical well-being benefits. And we've also been wondering, is there a way to connect those ideas with Connect Kids as well? I think it's already happening. The question is, can we quantify that? Or can we like put a little bit more emphasis on that piece? So I think it kind of comes down to what happens in the budget, right? Which ultimately kind of makes or breaks some decisions. But I know that, again, our colleagues at Parks who are working on this program specifically are definitely open to hearing our ideas. And I really appreciate their willingness to at least brainstorm with us and see what might stick.
I see a very detailed question from one Alan Kirchschlager, which I think we're going to hold and get back to you on email because it's such a detailed and I think requires a more thoughtful response than we can marshal on this webinar. But Alan, thank you for your question regarding wilderness management areas and what DEC might do to help increase the value and utility of those in rural areas. But yeah, we'll get back to you on that for sure. Back to you, Michaela.
Sure. So we talked about increased funding for municipalities improving public parks. How would a municipality apply for this funding?
That's a great question. Also, I think I'll handle this one unless Jana, you want to. Yeah, so the municipal parks program is eligible through the CFA process. So when that check OPRHP's website essentially. So when that program comes back online and the application period opens, municipalities and nonprofits can apply for that. The thing about municipal parks is that we really support and would like to maybe see strengthened over time if that can grow within a larger EPF, is 40% of the funding should be directed towards environmental justice communities. We'd like to see that expanded a bit. We'd also like to see some of the requirements for nonprofits changed to reduce their barriers of entry into this program. And so for Teresa, the short answer is it's through the CFA process, and municipalities are eligible to apply. I checked the website not too long ago. Nothing was updated, but it's probably depending on what happens with the budget. So I keep your eyes peeled.
Great. And I will add that this is being recorded and will be put on YouTube. You'll all receive an email with the recording in case you're interested in sharing it around or revisiting some of our talking points. And the CFA will be open in May if anyone is interested. So you might have noticed also our logo is a little bit different. There's a nice 40 in the corner. So we're celebrating our 40th anniversary at PTNY. What's on the horizon? Do we have any exciting milestones upcoming or anything new for the next decade?
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly chime in there. I was looking at the list of attendees just before this webinar started and noticed not just a lot of valued colleagues from our wonderful allies and organizational partners, but lots of PTNY supporters. So thank you for financially and otherwise supporting our good work. Michaela mentioned our 40th anniversary. This October 21st, we will be having a very special Perkins reception. It's something we do every year, but this year is going to be special because we're honoring Lucy Waletsky, who many of you know. Lucy's name is synonymous with stewardship, leadership, with our public lands and state park system. And so we're honored to honor Lucy this October at Perkins, October 21st at City Winery. And we'll also be recognizing the heroic efforts of Bob Kafin, who is a longstanding board member at Parks and Trails New York and a renowned environmental attorney who has done everything in New York City and New York State, including the green market program. I know he's been very active in green markets for a long time. And when I lived in the city, one of my favorite things to do was ride my bike to the green market at Union Square. I was doing that for so long before I realized that Bob had played such a role in the health of that wonderful experience. We also, of course, have our slate of Love Our New York Lands events coming up, Canal Clean Sweep on Earth Day, that whole weekend. And of course, Saturday, May 3rd, I Love My Park Day. Lots of you are already involved. You can get involved. Make sure you're subscribing to PTNY's e-news, which I think most of you are. And Michaela, what's the easiest way for folks to do that, to subscribe to e-news? You can just...
Yeah, right on our website. I can share that around in the post-webinar email if you're
Wonderful, wonderful. And Will, Shana, Erica, anything else for the 40th you want to mention? I mean, it's not really like a 40th anniversary event per se, but the Greenways conference that we're doing that you mentioned, Erica, in Kingston this October, we're very excited about. The first one in 15 years, you said. So we sort of dug into our archives, and maybe this is something you knew already, but you know, it was that long ago that we really tried to convene a whole statewide group of folks. And so looking to have at least 120 folks represented there in Kingston. And Kingston, as many of you know, has been doing wonderful work with the Greenway Network. I mean, OSI, of course, has been doing, you know, throughout the region, and in partnership with Kingston there, bringing the Greenway into town, right? Really making the Greenway integrated into people's everyday lives and experience. And we're very lucky to be hosting the conference there this October. So as Erica mentioned, we just sent out the call for papers, I think, last week. And if you're subscribing to e-news, you'll get more on the conference coming up.
Absolutely. So we hit on our parks economic impact report in the presentation. Are there any other reports or studies in the works?
Yeah, that's a great one. You know, we were so proud of the impact of that report. We got great press coverage. Thank you, Michaela. You know, great to see that, you know, top line slogan or soundbite getting passed around, that the New York State Parks is now a little bit larger than the New York State's agricultural sector in terms of its economic heft. And so that was wonderful. Next up is a study of the Greenway Trail Network, Empire State Trail in particular, not just looking at visitor spending and tourism dollars, but also land use, you know, real estate, the economic value in terms of attracting investment and talent to New York State. And also the potential value, right? You know, with the right zoning and land use policies, what more could we do to leverage the economic value of the network? There's a beautiful vision that's coalescing for us of really using the trail to help catalyze the development of walkable, bikeable, you know, 5-minute neighborhoods or 15-minute cities. Indeed, we're seeing some of this happen already. You know, where I live in the Hudson Valley in New Paltz, there's a couple of really wonderful you know, dense multi-use, you know, green trail-facing buildings, right, that are really enhancing the trail, making it better, and enabling the kind of lifestyle that I think everyone wants to see, and also including affordable housing in those developments, as Kingston is doing. That's another reason why we're putting a spotlight on Kingston and their new form-based code, which just got a big award from the Congress for New Urbanism, for really looking at how to put people where healthy lifestyles are, right? That's we might argue a better way to solve the access challenge, right? You can like look at the transportation, or you can try to bake it into the built environment. And it's a longer term project, but one that we're very excited about.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So keeping with greenways, can we talk a little bit more about the Empire State Trail Towns program? What sort of support do these towns receive?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So right now it's technical planning support and promotional assistance. So If you guys have used our resources before in terms of the promotional side, we have the Cycle the Erie Canal interactive map and website with trip planning resources. So we're highlighting the communities on that and all of the specific amenities and services they provide for trail users. So a lot of times, I mean, I'm a cyclist, bike tourist myself, so I'll need to know like, you know, where the restrooms are or when they're open or whether camping is allowed. And this information is really dispersed. So we're putting that all together in these Trail Town landing pages. And in terms of planning assistance, we do workshops and help build capacity within the community, help start building these Trail Town committees that are all really invested and interested in enhancing the trail user experience. So we work with them throughout the year to identify priority and investment opportunities like signage or other types of kind of low-hanging fruit infrastructure for them to then pursue grants to actually enact and implement. So that's kind of the scope of the program right now. Yeah, if you're subscribed to our e-news, you'll see an article coming out about the impact this program has been able to have over the last 4 years. So keep an eye out for that in the next couple days.
Awesome. And are there any greenways projects that are really exciting you right now that we should keep an eye out for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, the Southern Tier Trail is definitely a trail we've got our eye on. We're excited to be going out to Western New York in a couple of weeks for the Western New York Trail Greenways Planning Summit. If you want more information about that, if you're based out in Western New York and on the webinar right now, definitely reach out and we'll get you the information. But we're excited about all the momentum out there and really forming these cohesive trail connections that will bolster trail tourism and the economic development along those newly connected networks.
And if you're interested in finding out more in a more comprehensive way, all the multitude of greenway projects around the state, Erica and the team penned a wonderful document with our partners at OPRHP that we released last year. It's the Greenway Trails statewide progress report. Erica mentioned there's like 2,000 miles of trails now. There's like hundreds of miles under development. And it's a great way to get a sense region by region, which are the hot projects. The Long Island Greenway is a big one, right? And our colleagues at Trust for Public Land are really leading the charge on that. But maybe also a time to mention that, as you might expect, there's a lot of uncertainty right now about, funding for a lot of these projects, the ones, reliant on federal funding in particular. And so, we've obviously thrown in with TPL and our colleagues to impress upon the new administration, the extreme importance of these projects and ensuring that, funding that's in the pipeline stays in the pipeline. But yeah, please do download the progress report, and we can send that link around too as we do the rest of the follow-up. But as we wind down, unless there's another burning question or two, I just wanted to say thanks for participating. Thanks for being an active participant in this movement. It does take a movement, and we can't do it without you. So thanks for your support, your partnership. Looking forward to seeing many of you on Park Advocacy Day and indeed other events throughout the year for PTNY's 40th. Also just wanted to mention Robin Dropkin. Many of you worked with Robin. I've been on the job now 2 years since transitioning from the Robin era. And the legacy of her impact continues to be known, right? And it's amazing to see. So as we look back on our many accomplishments, the thing I remember most in my first 2 years at PTNY is just becoming really acquainted with Robin's leadership during those dark times when state funding for parks was really uncertain. And as I mentioned, we're in a renaissance period right now, thanks to Eric Coolizade and many other leaders. And I see the strength of this movement as really important to, again, prepare for some future day when we really may need you, right? To, again, raise the call and defend these places that we all hold dear. So thanks again for participating. Thanks for your support, and big shout out for Team PTNY. Thanks, Will, Erica, Shana, Michaela, for getting it done. All right, thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.